Welcome to our podcast, Not Exactly As We Expected, with me, Christine Capassi, and my husband, Sam Hendrickson.
We have a blended family with 6 kids and 2 dogs, and I've spent our careers in education.
We talk honestly about unexpected things that make up the life we have, even though it might not be the life we thought we'd planned.
We'll share stories and talk to inspiring people who have also lived through some of life's unexpected moments.
Our hope is together we can normalize the experience of being human and more ourselves, with fun along the way. Hello and welcome to Not Exactly As We Expected, the show that explores the twists and turns of life, including how to navigate the complexities of blindness. I'm Christine, and with us is our other host, Sam. In today's episode, we'll discuss guide dog training with puppy raiser volunteers Yfke Havinga and Michelle Russell. We'll discuss the ins and outs of what it's like to raise a puppy and offer listeners a special surprise at the end. Be sure to listen all the way through for details. Yfke Havinga is a veterinary student at The Ohio State University College of Veterinary Medicine who is planning to become a small animal emergency medicine veterinarian. Along with being a full-time student, she also trains future guide dogs for Guiding Eyes for the Blind. She is currently training Isla, a female yellow lab retriever. Her trainees include Dax, a retired stud dog, Stan, an active guide dog, and Lancelot, also an active guide dog. Michelle Russell lives in New Hampshire. She's married to her high school sweetheart, Chris, and they have 4 children together. Michelle has her master's in business administration and has a successful career as a top residential realtor. She is also a small business making t-shirt quilts. About 12 years ago, Michelle was one of her children's soccer games and met a puppy raiser and a black lab from Guiding Eyes for the Blind. She soon became involved with raising puppies and became a team member that helps run the New Hampshire puppy raiser region. Michelle has raised 10 Labrador Retrievers for Guiding Eyes for the Blind. Welcome, 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 ladies. Thank you so very much for taking time to speak with our listeners today.
Welcome again. Yfke and Michelle, tell us the story of how you began and became involved with puppy raising. I know we heard a little bit about yours, Michelle, but how did you really get involved in this idea of puppy raising for Guiding Eyes for the Blind?
I was really enthralled with the idea. When I met the puppy at a soccer game and the puppy raiser, it just intrigued me to be able to do something for somebody that was just so special. So I searched out Guiding Eyes for the Blind, and I went to training. I went to the puppy pre-placement class. I observed classes for about 6 months, and then I was given my first puppy to raise. And the first 2 puppies that I raised, I had for the entire 15 months, and then they went off to Guiding Eyes, and it literally broke my heart dropping them off at Guiding Eyes. And after those first 2, I decided that it would be better for me to start puppies. And then along came my friend Yfke, and we've been a team on 4 puppies together, and I think we've been really successful.
I would agree, but I'm a bit biased because I have one of your wonderful dogs that you helped raise. And Yfke, before you go into your story about how you got involved in puppy raising, just for our listeners, because this is not really common knowledge, but to give them a sense of context of what puppy raising really is. The dogs are typically born, in this case, Guiding Eyes for the Blind, at their facility in Yorktown, New York. And then at about 8 weeks, and please correct me if I'm wrong, they're at the facility at Guiding Eyes, but around 8 or 9 weeks, they go to puppy raisers until about the 15, 16-month mark, where they go back to the Guiding Eyes facility, endure some more training, and are selected to go what we call IFT, or intensive field training. And then that lasts for sometime about a year. at which point if they pass the intensive field training and become a guide dog, they're later matched. And when we say matched, it's their matching day. It's a big moment in the life of a dog, but I think a bigger moment in the life of the blind person where they get matched with a guide dog, and then the handler gets trained. They have a working life with that handler up until their retirement. So just to give some people perspective of when these two guests are involved in the dogs. So Yfke, how did you get involved in puppy racing? What did it for you?
My neighbor had two 6-week-old Labrador puppies, and of course, my high school self was like, well, I'm gonna go hang out with these puppies. And ends up they were home socializers for Guiding Eyes for the Blind. So home socializers get the puppies for 3 to 4 days from the age of 6 weeks to 8 weeks. So sort of their prime socialization period where we want to show them what different houses look like, what different stairs look like, and things like that. So I started off as a home socializer, and after doing that for a few years, I wanted to give back in a bigger way and decided to give puppy raising a try. And after my first puppy, Dax, who was wonderfully started by Michelle until he was 6 months old, I was hooked, and now I'm on my fourth puppy.
That's wonderful, wonderful. Ladies, talk a little bit about what it takes to be a puppy racer. You know, what kind of lifestyle do you need? I mean, clearly you have to love dogs, but talk about the commitment. What's your lifestyle need to be like while you're grooming and training this dog to be something great?
I can comment on that. I think there can be very different types of environments. There's lots of different kinds of people that can raise puppies. My particular case, the puppy came into a house with four children, a busy house. We have other dogs, cat, but it takes a lot of commitment from the puppy raiser because you really are interacting with that dog every single day, and that dog is a priority in your life. You're socializing the puppy. I've gotten all my puppies right at 8 weeks. So, you know, from the beginning, you're doing everything from teaching them how to just be in a crate to becoming part of your household, being a good dog and just a good pet in your house, but also there's a lot of special things that we need to do along the way. You know, particularly teaching them not to pick up anything off the ground. The entire time that we're raising a puppy, we're thinking of the visually impaired person that's going to eventually get our puppies. And so you have to attend training classes. In the beginning, it's once a week that you're with a puppy, and then it goes on to twice a month. But every day I would try to do some sort of outing with my puppy. But I think getting back to your question, there's all different kinds of people that raise puppies, people that are in high school and college, and seniors that live in retirement communities. It could be any type of person that, you know, you just have to have that commitment for the dog.
I totally agree with Michelle. Puppy raisers come from every walk of life, and that's also what makes it so very fun, is you get a group of dedicated volunteers together that come from different walks of life or different ages, and you all have the same goal of training a puppy to become someone's guide dog. My first puppy came to high school with me, the middle two came to college with me, and this current one comes to graduate school with me. And Michelle always does the hard part of getting them up to 6 months, and then I say I get to take over the fun part, so I miss all the puppy potty training and things like that. So if there are people who, you know, maybe can't handle those first couple months, there are other options, such as myself, who get an older puppy and are able to intertwine that puppy a little more better into their everyday life because they're no longer an 8-week-old puppy.
Yeah.
So is everyone who gets a puppy, are they a certain type of raiser? Like, yeah, I think about all of the just human parents in the world, and there's a variety of styles and a variety of parenting styles. Is it the same for puppy raising? Do you have to be a certain kind of person in raising in the way you approach it? The puppy is no. I'm seeing heads nodding.
I don't think so. I think that's the beauty of being a puppy raiser is it takes all kinds of people to raise puppies, and our dogs become better dogs and better guides because we do a lot of puppy swapping and puppy sits, and then the dog gets to go to different households and get used to different kinds of families. Like at my house, they are introduced to, say, cats. They could go to Yfke's house and they would be introduced to chickens, right, Yfke? And
Yes.
yeah, so different. It's kind of interesting because one of the benefits I've had of becoming a puppy raiser is the joy of meeting all the different people that become puppy raisers. That's one of the benefits that I never even saw when I started out as a puppy raiser, is the friendships that I've made over the years with amazing people. I mean, we all have, I think the common thread is that everybody loves dogs, and we all love to give back and really give the dog away. I mean, you love this dog more than anything, and then you give the dog away, and you have to give it back to Guiding Eyes for the Blind, and you know that it's going to go to somebody, or to some of the dogs don't make it as guide dogs, and they might go on to become I had a dog that became an explosion detection dog, a bomb detection dog. And so there's all different careers, but it's been pretty exciting meeting all the different kinds of people.
And part of the fun of it too is that when these puppies turn 7, 8 weeks old, they take their first puppy test, which kind of tells Guiding Eyes what kind of dog this is going to be. Person like myself needs a very energetic, lively kind of puppy who can handle the stresses of living in the city. Versus Michelle, has a slightly more laid back lifestyle than I do in terms of not living in a busy city. So a puppy that is matched to Michelle is slightly different than the puppy that would be matched to me as a raiser. And I think Guiding Eyes to the Blind does a great job of saying, this is what this raiser would do best training, and matches us to a puppy, just like they match the guide dog handlers to a dog that is fully trained, that will set them up for the most success.
So, and I'm thinking about your the dog taking a test at a little desk with a little pencil, so that Guiding Eyes has a little idea about how the dog will fare in a city. Is it a city dog? Is it a country dog? What book is that? I can't remember what it is. What exactly is this test? Do you know?
The 8-week-old puppy test is set up of them walking over different kinds of surfaces. So is this puppy willing to step on a weird grate that feels funny on its toes? And how do they feel about having, they have adorable miniature guide dog harnesses that they put on them, and to see how these puppies react to it. Since Guiding Eyes has found that 8 weeks can be an indicator to how they are overall, and how do they do to the surprising noise behind them. Are they the puppy that says, oh, that's weird, let me go check it out? Or is it the puppy that says, I'm really nervous about that and I need support? And at that age already, they can start to see which dogs would love to be a working dog and potentially be a guide dog, and which ones say, hey, I would love to be a couch potato. And those already get released to a long list of waiting adopters who are willing to adopt a puppy. And then they emulate that exam, like Sam mentioned, at the IFT exam, the Info Training exam, so that they can also see kind of continuity of how has this puppy aged, and how does they test at 8 weeks versus how do they test at 18 months.
So regardless of how the puppies do at any stage or as they grow, there's a home for them. There's a place for them, whether it be matched ultimately with someone with vision impairments, or homed to a person who might adopt the dog once Guiding Eyes for the Blind determines that this might not be a match, or as you mentioned, Michelle, like did you say an explosion dog, where it's a different career change?
That's correct. And also, like our first dog that Yfke and I raised, he became a stud. So that's probably the best of the best. They pick the best puppies. And some they have dual careers also. They become a stud or a brood and then also go on to harness training. But Dax was really special. He became a stud, and then the three other dogs that we've raised together have come from Dax's
Right.
line. Yeah.
Yes,
So,
Stan is, I think, his son.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Michelle, earlier you talked about skills and, training kinds of things that the both of you do as puppy raisers as sort of foundational skills, with the idea in mind that you're not just training them to be really well-trained pets, but service animals for the blind. What kinds of unique training do you do in preparation for these dogs to become guide dogs for the blind?
That's a great question. I have been getting the puppies right in the beginning. So, and the last 4, I've known that Yfke was going to get the puppies at like 6 months. So it's really just that initial stage of getting them used to getting them potty trained, getting them to not bark in the crate. That has been huge with Dax, Stan, Lancelot, and Isla. Just getting them to walk over different surfaces. You're going through that bitey stage too, where they're biting everything and chewing on things. And really, and right from the day that I get the puppies, it's teaching them how to walk nicely on a leash. We start that right at 8 weeks of age, where when you walk with them, we do different kinds of walks. Sometimes we use the long line where they're allowed to just sniff and pick up things, but you're kind of teaching them to not pick it up and eat things. And then we spend a lot of time just teaching them to walk. And then if they're pulling, we stop and change directions. We do a lot of different things because we're trying to teach the puppy to engage with you and to not pull. So that's kind of a lot of what I do. And also just teaching them, just socializing. I spend lots and lots of time exposing them. I have them in that critical period of time where you want them to not be afraid of anything. So it's going to farms, bringing them downtown, hearing noise, hearing traffic. I just try to expose them to every different, type of person too. Men with hats, people with goggles on. You really just want to introduce them to the water and puddles and and then I knew that Yfke was going to get the puppies, and I knew that she was going to be in school. So I also had to spend a lot of time when I worked having the puppy to be able to settle really easily by my desk. That was a very important skill, especially for a student. Yfke, whether she was in high school, college, or vet school, she needed to attend class for a multitude of hours. And so I think the pups were pretty good by the time they got to her, that they could stay in a crate and not bark, and they could lay at her feet on a leash and do a great job.
Wonderful. I have a sort of a unique but fun fact. I get asked about this a lot with Stan, so I wanted to bring it up. It might be a little earthy, but our listeners can handle it. And I think it has something to do with how you raise them. So I just wanted to kind of fact check this. Stan is a guy, and he's a squatter. He doesn't lift his leg. Is that something that's intentional in the training? He'll also go anywhere. He can go in New York City if we're in the city. He can go on gravel. He doesn't need the perfect patch of grass. And I have to say, as a blind person, when you're out and about and you need to go into a theater and we're in New York City, there might not be an available patch of grass. So is that intentional at the puppy raising stage?
That's absolutely intentional. Right from the beginning, We take them out, and it's get busy, and you want them to get busy as fast as possible. And we bring them on every different kinds of surface.
Yeah.
So you can't always just take them to the grass or the snow. You know, you want to have them go on the pavement and the dirt and bark mulch. And I kind of always have them at the stage where they're really not lifting their leg, at least the males. Kind of when Yfke takes over, that's when the males become a little bit wilder and want to lift their legs. And we do a lot of walking down the middle of the street or not near any mailboxes. Right?
Correct.
Yeah. And it's really, from what we've been told, I mean, and we also touch the puppy on their back, down by their tail. We do a lot of, so when I have a puppy, it could be 2-3 months old, and, you know, it's get busy, and then you would touch their back, and they need to get used to that because the visually impaired person needs to be able to clean up after their dog, and they need to be able to tell the difference. And so you don't want the dog moving, because a lot of puppies, they'll move around while they're going to the bathroom. So yeah, we really work on that to try to make it easier for the visually impaired person.
Well, from this visually impaired person, thank you, because it really comes in handy.
Wow.
It's a major thing. It sounds little, but it's thank you for checking that, because it is true.
Yfke, what's it like when you get them? What's that carry over to once they're in your hands?
So once they're in my hands, like Michelle said, she's done. I always say the hardest part. The puppy is now potty trained, and it no longer bites at your toes, and it can sit by your feet and fall asleep. So this first few weeks is really getting to know what the puppy is like and what is this dog's personality like. Is this a go-getter? Is this one that's a little bit calmer, more laid back? And really building the rapport of like, I am the cookie lady. I bring all the cookies. So the first like month is kind of like figuring out this new relationship of you and this dog. And then I build off of that of saying, okay, let's try the grocery store for the very first time. And the first time it's just going in the door and leaving. And eventually that builds up to, I can now walk with a grocery cart, and push it and have my dog next to me and not be worried that that puppy is going to pick the grape off the ground, lead me directly to the cheese aisle and want to go sniff the smelly cheese, and will also be able to ignore the people that are calling out for the puppy to come say hi. So a lot of it is anticipating what challenges this dog will face as a guide dog and saying, okay, how can I break this down? How can I break down me leaning over the meat aisle and going to grab chili meat and having this dog not try to follow my hand there? So that's always fun when those things start to click. And then, like Michelle said, it's socializing to everything. So the goal of a puppy by the time they get to what we call guide dog college, or the in-for training stage, is that this puppy has seen everything or almost everything life has to throw at him or her. So the next time it sees a horse, it says, oh, I saw one. That's not a big worry. Or the next time it sees someone dressed up in snowsuit attire, it doesn't get uncomfortable by that. So it's taking your dog to different social events, like taking it to a basketball game, which is suddenly there's tons of people around it and it's very crowded and it's noisy. But the rule is still the same. Whether I'm at my desk or at a basketball game, the rule is that you should lie down by my feet and preferably take a nap. And we work and build on that as puppy raisers, so it's always fun watching all these dogs click all the pieces together. So now where Isla can come to lecture for 3 hours straight. In the beginning it was 1 hour lecture and then I had to leave. Or things like in the beginning I couldn't push the grocery cart and get my groceries and coordinate Isla, and I always needed someone there to help me. But now I can do that all by myself with her. So it's a huge sense of accomplishment, and you're so happy you get there. And then it also dawns on you of, oh no, this puppy now knows everything, which means IFT is around the corner, which brings on that mixture of emotions of, wow, this dog has come so far. And I'm so excited for them to go on their next step towards their guide dog journey, but also, oh no, this is the end of our road together, or at least the time that they are physically with me. All of our puppies have been somewhere that we've kept in contact to some degree, which has been lovely. That even though this dog isn't physically a part of my life, I still get to receive text messages or pictures and videos, which further drives, I think, both of us to keep raising puppies as long as we can. So the people who foster that transition are the incredible guide dog mobility instructors who are employed by Guiding Eyes for the Blind, who take the steps of what us as puppy raisers have now fostered this very well-behaved dog and add on all of the guide dog commands. So we don't teach any of the actual guide dog commands as puppy raisers. That is what they learn at college or the Guiding Eyes training facility.
And to further expand on that, the dog comes to the handlers, as the blind people are called, fully trained, and essentially they're just training us how to work with the dog and let the dog do everything. The dogs are absolutely amazing, really incredible in what they're able to do, how they keep us safe.
Sometimes I'm asked about how we wound up getting the dog, and the other popular question that I get is how much did we pay for it? Oh, and I also we also get the question when we're out and about is how did we train them to do this? We take no credit for that, I promise. We are so grateful that our dog has all the training necessary. Do you know how we wound up with Stan and how most people get a guide dog? Are you involved in that level of the process?
I know parts of how that all works. I am not fully part of the process. I know that they match. Sam could probably elaborate better on the actual deciding what each individual needs in a guide dog. And then the beauty of Guiding Eyes for the Blind having many dogs at the training facility at the same time is they can say this person is a rather fast walker, is very athletic and walks a ton, so we need a faster dog that has a high energy requirement, and then says, okay, which of our dogs that is almost done with training fits this picture? And then you end up with the perfect matches like Sam and Stan that said, these two look perfect for each other, and then we're going to hopefully put them together in team training, and it works perfectly, and then we match them.
I had wondered about that, how ultimately Stan was the match for Sam. You know, was it how quickly my husband walks? Was it how quickly Stan walks? Their energy levels. I'm putting it all together now that was all probably part of it, and I'm probably missing a lot more of it.
I think so. I mean, I can remember Guiding Eyes for the Blind. Do you remember that day, Christine? They came down. It was an extensive, I think, 4-hour site interview at our home. Funniest of which was walking around my neighborhood with this trainer from Guiding Eyes for the Blind holding an empty harness and me grabbing the harness in what's called a Juno walk around our neighborhood. And I thought to myself, what must my neighbors think that I'm walking around closely with this woman holding on to this harness, but she was acting like the dog. She was on 2 feet, not all fours, but anyway, and walking around our neighborhood and stopping. And because it's really, having been a dog owner all my life, you have to kind of allow yourself to be walked by the dog. And there's this immense amount of trust that is needed to just put your full trust in the dog, that the dog is on, and you get the feeling and you get to know the dog of when they're on, and they're just doing their thing. They're stopping, they're avoiding obstacles, and acting on their training. It's an amazing feeling, really. It truly is.
Guiding Eyes does a really great job of matching. I think even when they match the puppies to the puppy raisers, they look at your home life, what your family's like. They look at your temperament, they really take into account all of that when they match the puppies. Like with Yfke and I, they know kind of where the dog's going to end up. So they pick out the appropriate dog for a college campus. You need a really social, resilient dog for a college campus, because they're going to interact with so many different kinds of people, and it's just a busy environment, as opposed to a pup that's not going to a college. So I think they do a great job also when they're pairing a dog with a graduate. You know, they're really they do a great job.
I wanted to ask, because I've heard different things. This is, Stan is my first guide dog, and he's such a blessing, and it's a further blessing that we've maintained some level of contact with you both. We've even been on a few outings with Yfke when she had both Lancelot. No, we haven't met Isla in person yet, but anyway, what do you stay in contact with the dogs that have been matched in some way other than through social media? Do you get to visit them in their new environments and maintain any kind of relationship? And if so, or if not, what's that like for you as puppy raisers?
I've been able to keep in contact with every puppy that I've raised.
Nice.
I had a couple that were medically released, and I was still able to be in touch with the person that adopted them. With the dog that became the bomb detection dog, I kept in touch with that, his handler. And yeah, it's what happens is the Guiding Eyes for the Blind gives our information to whoever gets the dog, and then they usually reach out. So it really depends. I think Yfke and I, and we've been really, really lucky that where the dogs end up, they want to keep in touch with us, because it means a really lot to the puppy raisers. It means everything to keep in touch with their dog and their heart.
Yeah, can only imagine.
Yeah.
Yfke, I wondered, you have such an expertise as a future veterinarian. What makes a Labrador Retriever or certain breeds of dogs? I'm guessing that Guiding Eyes for the Blind and some other places mostly just use Labradors, but what other breeds do make good guide dogs?
So Guiding Eyes actually has used a variety of breeds in the past. They used to use Golden Retrievers. We also currently have a small population of German Shepherds. And I believe we even used to use collies back in the day. It really is the personality traits of what you think of as a Labrador Retriever in general that makes it an awesome guide dog. These are super loyal, happy dogs that are very sociable and biddable, and are adaptable to many different kinds of lifestyles, and that's what makes a great guide dog. Guiding Eyes for the Blind also has their own breeding colony, and that allows them to focus on particular traits that they want in their dogs, and breed to build off of that. So the dogs that we use for breeding, we want them to be super confident dogs, because those pass down super confident puppies, versus taking a dog that's a little bit more timid, which might be great to be a pet, but isn't what we really desire as a guide dog. And the different guide dog organizations across the US and across the world, a lot of them use Labrador Retrievers and other retrievers. It doesn't mean that other dogs are less qualified to be them, but they are the right size, the right temperament, and I think have phenomenal personality. So why wouldn't you want a Labrador guide dog?
Sure. And they also love food. That's one of the big things, right? German Shepherds are a little harder because they don't necessarily like the treats. They want the toy. And so, I don't know, you have to just train them a little different ways. But it makes it so easy, because when we go from like when I have a puppy and then I would start it and then it would go to Yfke to finish, they by using treats, that's how you gain the loyalty of that dog. So then it just goes to Yfke, and then it would leave Yfke, go to Guiding Eyes, and then those trainers are using treats, and then they go from the guide school to you, Sam, and right,
yep.
And it's so, and their sweet personality helps.
I think what Christine would say, that's one thing Stan and I share in common, that we run on praise and treats. We're trainable. if you feed us and you praise us.
It is remarkable to me how loyal Stan is to Sam. And by that I mean Stan is very, very truly a family dog. You know, he is excited to see absolutely every one of us when we come home. You know, if any of us are eating or around, he's all about that person. But if Sam walks out of the room, he'll pivot and follow, even off harness. He'll wait outside the bathroom until he comes out. You know, you name it. He's always, always, always following Sam around. And that's what you want, right?
Right.
That level of loyalty.
Yeah.
I'm just amazed at how intelligent in so many ways he is, regardless
Yeah,
of his training.
he's absolutely amazing. Every 8 weeks or so, I have to have a surgical procedure on my eyes, and I'm not, you know, right. I'm blinder than I usually am for about 72 hours. Stan somehow just knows. You know, he's with me, by the way. The doctor allows him in the procedure room some of the time. And he's there. He sits on the floor. But he knows after the procedure, even when we get home and he's off harness, he's right at my left side. I can grab his collar and say, take me to the steps. You know, I've target trained him at different places in the house. And he's just wonderful, even off harness. And does those
It's
kinds
just
of
proud.
things without a treat.
Aren't you like?
So it's just
Yeah.
wonderful. He's just an amazing animal. Really is.
The
Well,
biggest polar bear Labrador.
yes, he's a big guy. All 84 pounds of him. He is. He is. As we kind of near the end of our conversation, and before we begin the fun rapid fire portion of the show, what in your opinion is the biggest misconception out there about guide dogs? The biggest misunderstanding that people may have.
I think the biggest misunderstanding is that these dogs don't get to have fun. I've had many people over the years ask me, so he or she always working? Do they get to be a dog? Do they get to be cuddled? Of course, my response is, yeah, once this vest or this harness comes off, this is just a well-behaved dog. They have dog beds and they get cuddles and they get treats. And the reason why they're guide dogs or any kind of service dog is because they love to work. There is no way you could ever get a dog that didn't love this career to do it. And that's what makes these dogs so very special, that they have to drive to want to please at this high, intense caliber.
Yeah.
Can you just talk for a second about the difference between, I think there's a misconception about a service dog.
Saying hello.
Up there, Stan. He just got up and he's in the screen. For those of you listening, if you could see us, you could see that Stan is in the air over there. If you could tell the difference between our listeners between a service animal and an emotional support dog, how would you capture that?
An emotional support animal is not specially trained to aid a person in a disability. They both have their prerequisite that their individual has to have a disability. An emotional support animal is helpful in the sense that it provides emotional support, which is a vital service. But it is not trained to the caliber that service dogs are trained. Most service dogs go through at least 2 years of training to get access to places that dogs and pets are not allowed to go. And that's why it's so important that we recognize that only service dogs are allowed to be in public and not other pets, because they have gone through rigorous training to be there. And by bringing your pet or your emotional support animal into those places, you risk the jeopardizing the training of fully trained service dogs or dogs who are hopefully going to be fully trained service dogs one day.
Thank you. And service dogs are not just for the blind. Service dogs can include people who are have a trauma or need some support or a medical need. Isn't that right? And you don't work with those kinds of trainings, correct?
Correct. So, Guiding Eyes for the Blind only specifically trains guide dogs for individuals who are visually impaired. We do have some of our dogs that go to different organizations that might become a hearing dog for someone who is deaf, or someone who has a physical handicap and is in a wheelchair and needs service dog work in that regard.
Wonderful. So we have our Fast Five questions, and the rule for Fast Five is that you just, it's not about thinking, it's just about answering the questions. So we actually have 7, I'm not going to lie. With you two, we were debating which ones we should do. So it's in no particular order, and they're not for anyone in particular. But we're curious. A song you can't live without. Yfke.
Staying Alive, only because CPR rhythms always run through my head as a future ER doctor.
Michelle?
I love September by Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Okay, Lab or German Shepherd?
Lab.
Yfke.
We're all the way.
You better
Labrador.
say lab.
All right. Cake or pie?
Cake. Chocolate.
Apple pie.
Text or talking?
Talking.
Talking.
Favorite dog Halloween costume?
Pumpkin.
Big Bird.
Stan.
Was Stan
With
Big
his
Bird?
ears.
Yes, I dressed up Stan as Big Bird because he was a big
Bird,
dog.
Yep. Yeah.
Who has it easier, male or female dogs?
Female.
They both have very cool. They're very different. But I think I like the boys more, but that might be because I've trained 3 boys and only 1 girl.
Yep, I've only had 1 girl. I like the boys too.
Are they easier?
Isla was the easier puppy. But
Isla was easier, but because she went through heat, that had its own set of challenges. So she went through a month of having to wear a diaper, versus the boys get all the unruly teenage behavior. So they're just different challenges. But I think the boys are much cuddlier and more like people, like even more people dogs, and have this certain goofiness that at least Isla doesn't have.
And this is the question Sam came up with. Can an old dog learn new tricks?
yes. Absolutely.
That's all Michelle.
Depends on the amount of Charlie bears.
True. So true.
Was there
That's a lot.
anything? Was there anything that we didn't get around to asking you that you might want to add for our listeners?
I always wanted to know what we could do better as puppy raisers. What could we, like, I always wanted to be able to teach the dogs how to put their toys back. Like, because you teach them how to go get a ball and bring it back. And Yfke and I worked really hard on having them put the ball in, remember from Dax to Isla, with Dax, we let him just drop it at our feet. But by the time we had Isla, she needed to put it in our hands. Same with Stan and Lancelot. But is there anything you think that we could do better that would help a visually impaired person?
Well, that's interesting because Christine has asked me, can we train Stan to put his bones back in a basket or something? Because there's nothing like, in the middle of the night, stepping on a kind of
Stepping on 'em.
half-chewed nyla bone with those little prickly edges and bare feet.
So true.
I don't know. Other than that, I mean, that's a practical one, but yeah. What do you think, Christine?
Well, the first thing that came to my mind was stepping on the bones and wondering if we could train him that. it's interesting because our training can't go everywhere, like when we're introduced to the dog. So our first time that we went to the airport and got onto the plane, it was new for me and Sam to just trust and figure out that Stan would know what to do. So for me and my part, it would be like helping a caregiver or a spouse have a better understanding of how this works. We did have the good fortune of going to like Costco and with Karen, our trainer, and Stan was put on a follow command, which meant for our listeners, which meant that Stan just followed me around, which is not easy to do even when Sam had sight. So, following me around a Costco and taught me a lot about what Stan was capable of and how this team interacted and how this team worked together. But it didn't make a lot of sense to me. It was all brand new. So that would be something for me to know and understand better, like how that works. And the other thing was the intelligent disobedience. When your loved one has a dog and a trained dog and they're about to cross the street, or you watch the trainer pull into the driveway and cut them off, and you see the magic of Stan stopping, but at the same time you want to, it's terrifying. It's terrifying that to watch, but to witness it the first time, that the dogs are capable of like making a split-second decision on behalf of their handler. It's tremendous. So for me, I say all of that to say, be nice to know as the caregiver or loved one what to expect, because there wasn't a lot of that. And it should be focused on the handler. It would be helpful for the loved one to be more aware.
Those are great points. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
we'll have to bring that back to Guiding Eyes. Let them know.
What a tremendous organization. I know I mentioned earlier that, we wondered about the cost, or sometimes people ask about that. This tremendous organization, which we just can't plug enough, provides these dogs free of charge to those who are in need, who have a visual impairment. And tremendous volunteers like you, Michelle, like you, Yfke, give of your time and your love and your sacrifice for not just you, but your families, your classmates, the universities are all, pulling together to make sure that this can all come together in the service of someone in need. And I just can't thank you enough. And Guiding Eyes for the Blind, thank you for what you're doing from the bottom of our hearts. We're so grateful.
You're so welcome.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you coming on today, and thank you for your time. Our listeners will have an opportunity to write their questions in the chat, and not the chat, but on the voice recording on our website. So thank you for coming today, and we look forward to remaining in touch with you. Have a wonderful night.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank
so
you
much
for having me.
Thank you for listening to Not Exactly As We Expected. Before we go, show some love for your favorite podcast by liking us on Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, Apple, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.